Wait, what about this part? Shh.
Welcome to TBR, a podcast where two besties read. I'm Addi.
And I'm Alex, and join us as we reread,
Review,
and reevaluate our favorite books over the years.
Shh, I'm reading.
This week on TBR, we're covering The Hollow Boy by Jonathan Stroud, Part 1, The Lavender Lodge, Chapters 1 through 3. Hey, hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Two Besties Read, or TBR. As always, I'm Alex, and as always, I'm joined with my... I should plan this out better. As always, I'm joined by my incredibly exciting co-host.
This is the longest time you've tried to come up with adjectives for me. Do we really need to rethink the name of this podcast?
Well, I was like trying to think of a good E one.
Extraordinary, excellent, elegant.
I'm here with my excitingly awesome collaborator and co-host, Addi. Addi, what are you drinking today?
I have some white wine.
Shockingly, I'm not drinking white wine.
No way, are you drinking a Diet Coke?
No, I shook things up today and I am drinking Kool-Aid.
Oh, I was really hoping that was going to end in water.
There's water, it's a Kool-Aid mix, and it's sugar-free, so it's kind of healthy. It does stain the countertop if you spill on that. Not that I'm speaking from experience. I'm just putting that out there.
You say from the stained countertop.
Yeah. But it's delicious. It's tropical punch flavored. Highly recommend.
Ooh, tropical punch.
Tropical punch. But we are excited today because we're starting the third book in the series, The Hollow Boy.
Listeners, hence why I am drinking white wine.
Get ready to get wrecked because this book is emotional.
Let the trauma begin.
It'll rip your heart out, and we don't get any good conclusions to the end of book 5, so...
Also, this is the first book we're reading in the series that does not have an adaptation. I'm going to say yet, hopefully, crossing our fingers. So, there's you won't hear us say, well, in the TV show, it was great. None of that, probably.
No.
We might call back to some things of what they were probably leading up to in speculation, but this is brand new territory here, folks.
Yeah, it also doesn't have a Wikipedia page, so just putting that out there.
Wonder who will write it.
I did have to do a little research since there wasn't a Wikipedia page. I looked on the fandom page, and The Hollow Boy was published in September of 2015.
So how many months was between that and when The Whispering Skull came out?
The Screaming Staircase was published in 2013. The Whispering Skull was published in the US in 2014, in the UK 2015, and then The Hollow Boy was published in September of 2015. So almost a year every book.
Stroud, if you're listening, please, this will be another question I add to my list. Under How Are the Kids in Alaska, I would like to know, did you write any of these in tandem, at the same time? Because I know some authors, they just, write the whole series, and then they'll break it up and release it at different times. Or if it's he wrote the first book, and then he wrote the rest of them in tandem. I'm very curious. Stroud, email us at twobestiesread@gmail.com.
This week, we're covering the first part of The Hollow Boy, which is part 1, The Lavender Lodge, which is chapters 1 through 3. And we'll start off with our question of the week. Addi, what is your most embarrassing mishap?
Well, you messaged me this, and I thought, and there are a lot. I will be honest, I kind of got the persona in my family of Raven Simone from That's So Raven. Listeners, if you haven't seen that TV show, just watch it. It's just so good. It still holds up. But the amount of times that she falls on her face or does something, gets back up and goes, I'm okay, and then maybe walks away and goes, slightly less okay. That's just the definition of my life. That's just every single experience ever. Whether it be, with other people, with myself, family, friends, strangers, that's just the definition. This is one, though. It doesn't take the cake, but it is a pretty embarrassing mishap that I had. I ran cross country in high school.
Oh.
I know. Shocking. And I was not your star runner. I was, as I said, the friendly person who watched the back of the line. So I always finished out the race. They all knew, thank God, she's done with the race. We can close up shop now, And so at practice, I still had that same persona of just, I'm there to work out, and that's about it.
You're there to participate.
I'm not there to win medals. This is an independent sport. So we had a practice, and we always ran a lap around the school parking lot. And I'm running, and I'm talking to my friend next to me, and blah, 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 blah. Face plant. I tripped on something. And in my defense, they are not constructed how they usually are. Yes, listeners, I tripped on a speed bump, okay? But it was not like a regular speed bump that's pretty wide, okay? I kid you not, this was a speed bump that like everyone knew that was terrible. Like even if you went the slowest speed in your car, 1 mile an hour, you still felt like your car was gonna fall apart, okay? So that's how intense this speed bump was. And I'm just running along and I face plant. My knee is bleeding. I'm bleeding on my chin. And everyone's like, oh my God, are you okay? I get back up and I'm like, I'm okay. I run like 2 steps and I go, I'm not okay.
Crying internally.
So then I limped back basically because my knee hurt. So I limped all the way back to like the actual school building, and my coach is standing there. And my coach, listeners, let me just tell you, he looked like the Lorax, but he acted like the Whistler. Okay, like that's who this man was. He takes one look at me and goes, "What's the problem? Why aren't you running?" And I said, "Well, I kind of fell." And he's like, "What did you fall on?" I'm like, "The speed bump."
You're going so fast. He flew over it.
Yeah, I mean, he expected so much from me with my lightning speed. You know me, out winning state races.
I would love to see a video reenactment in slow motion.
Honestly, if any of my friends that were there, there's probably like 2 of them that remember that occurrence, remember being there, please email us at twobestiesread@gmail.com. Yeah, there are a lot of mishaps from cross country. That one is pretty embarrassing though. And it was, it's in front of everyone that was going home from school. There's been many others. A lot of them have just been I fall on my face. But I laugh about it afterwards because it's just so funny. What about you? Tell me your embarrassing moments.
I have a lot. So many mishaps. You know when you're laying in bed at night and then you get that wave of shame because all you can think of is running through all of these embarrassing moments?
Oh, yeah.
So this one's recurring. I was at work in college. So I was talking to my coworkers because it was my birthday coming up. And they're like, what are your plans? And all I could think of was like, I'm turning 20. I beat teen pregnancy. Their faces just fell. And I was like, in my head, I thought that was a really good joke. I'm not going to be like a teenager anymore. I beat teen pregnancy, you know? Like, haha, good joke. That's like the only good thing about turning 20. Because you have your sweet 16, you get your learner's permit and stuff. When you're 18, you're like, ooh, you're a legal adult and you can vote now. And then 20, you beat teen pregnancy. 21, you can drink in the United States. 22, you got the Taylor Swift song, you know. 25, you can rent a car.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I could think of. And I just saw their faces fall because they didn't have that context that was running through my brain. And I had to explain it. And they just looked at me like I was the dumbest person ever. Because who says that to your bosses? I just know my face was like crimson red. It was radiating heat like a sunburn. Oh, it was so embarrassing.
Okay, I have another story, which I don't know if you know this story, but this one's really funny. So it's not something, I wasn't here when this happened, but then I found out about it later and was super embarrassed. So for a long time, my voicemail, when you called me, I sang the song, Do You Want to Build a Snowman? But it was like, do you want to talk to Addi? I'm sorry, I'm not at my phone. If this is an emergency, please text me or leave a message at the tone. I know it's really boring listening to me, but what are you gonna do? If you want to leave a message, please leave a message at the tone, please. Okay, bye.
That's incredible.
It was
Did you
great.
ever change it? Yeah.
I did change it because, I'm sorry, my boss calls me too often. So important people call me too often that I can't have that as my voicemail when they call me. But I did save it so I can listen to it. I can still have it. It still does exist. So I had this as my ringtone like for years. And in high school, I was in theater and I was like the stage manager for this production we were putting on. And I was like co-stage manager. So I was co-stage manager with my friend. We're going to call him Joe. Okay. Mm-hmm. So Joe and I were stage managers together. And I had to leave early, I think for like cheer practice or something. Not the point. I had to leave early. And Joe had a question for me, so he called me. And at this point, he had never called me, so he had no idea what my voicemail was. So he called me and heard my voicemail and was like, that is fucking hilarious. Let me call again and make sure that's real. So he called me again, and I didn't answer. So he listened to it again, and then he was laughing, and so someone else was like, oh my gosh, what are you listening to? So he called me again and played it out loud for a couple people. And then some more people were like, wait, what's going on? So he called me again, played it.
My God.
And then pretty soon, the theater director and the choir director were like, what are you listening to? So they put it on
no.
the speaker in the theater and played it out loud.
Oh my God.
For everyone to hear in the whole production of Shrek, the musical.
Oh my
Heard my
God.
voicemail. So I come back later and I have like 10 missed calls from Joe. And I'm like, Joe, are you dying?
Yeah,
Is
like
someone
someone
dead?
died.
Is the theater on fire? Like, what is happening? She's like, oh no, we just really liked your voicemail. We had to play it on the loudspeaker. I'm like, excuse me, what?
Oh
I
my
was
God.
mortified. Oh my God. And then I would just have people call me every so often. They'd be like, don't answer. I'm like, oh, sorry.
Yeah, they're just calling for your voicemail, not to talk to you. Just
I
for
know
the
what I'm
voicemail.
worth to people.
Yeah.
It's just a voicemail.
Just the voicemail. Oh my God, that's iconic. I love that. Okay, we don't really have a synopsis for the last book we read because that was just The Dagger in the Desk, which was kind of a one-off case for Lockwood & Co. where they investigated a haunting at a school and sealed the source.
And we don't know exactly what time this happened. We just know it's sometime in between these two books. I think that's the only hint we've ever gotten from Jonathan Stroud of when this occurred.
Mm-hmm. So it was like a collaborative book where he set up things and let the audience vote for certain things. It was very cool. It was like 42 pages, worth a read. It's free on Kindle and on the website, and you can listen with an audiobook. So
Yeah, Jonathan Stroud narrates it. So go check it out. Go check out that episode if you haven't. It's also a time.
very cool. Highly recommend. But that leads us to chapter 1. Quick question. I see that you have a paperback book. When you're starting reading, do you crack the spine?
No, I'm kind of always torn because I see now the TikTok videos of people like, slamming their book on the table and like cracking the spine every single page.
That's needlessly aggressive.
I know. The worst videos are the ones that they're trying to rebind the book and they like rip off the front.
No.
Every single time I'm like, oh.
Like witnessing a violent crime. I do love those videos on TikTok though, where like the person rebinds them in kind of like the penguin fashion.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay. Hold on. I have to find this really quick because there
We're
is
already on a tangent. We haven't even started.
No, this is a good one. There is a person in the Lockwood & Co. fandom that has been doing book bindings for the Lockwood & Co. books, and they've done the first 2 books, and they look really
What?
cool. Yes. Okay, so on TikTok, her name is Abraxos.
Abraxos?
Abraxos. Abraxos? I don't know if I'm saying that correct.
I'm pretty sure that's a reference to Throne of Glass. That's the dragon. Technically a wyvern, but whatever.
There's a dragon?
Not in Throne of...
You gotta keep that part. Listeners, I just started reading Throne of Glass, so Alex has epically spoiled it for me. Don't tell me anything else.
Then I will say it's an 8-book series. It's an 8-book series, and it's not gonna be in the first book, so you got time. You got time.
Yeah, now I'm just gonna stew on that. Oh my God. Okay, yes, this is them. So I love them because they actually put the thinking cloth that all the fans have been working on and contributing to. They put the thinking cloth as the inside cover.
That's adorable.
It's really cute. They do a fantastic job. Listeners, please check them out and like them because they're so cool. They actually have been binding the books. They believe they've just done the first 2. So they still have yet to do the 3, 4, and 5. Anyways, okay, paperback books. I don't break them. I just let them naturally break. What about you?
I usually let them. Sometimes I get frustrated when, like, I'm trying to write notes and the book keeps closing. Like, I set the book down and type something, the book closes, and then I'm like, no! And just, like,
Yep.
crack it open.
Yep.
And sometimes my dog lays on it, so that's, like, naturally breaking the spine if it's open. Casual.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
I have so many pictures of him, like, snuggled up with a book. I'll post them someday.
Oh, please do. All right, chapter 1.
1.
Okay, it opens with the, hi, I'm Lucy, and my life is kind of crazy.
Every time. Chapter 2 is even harder with that, like, recap.
Oh, I know.
But yeah, we always get, like, our little intro on, like, I work at Lockwood & Co., and here's a case that didn't go according to plan.
Yeah.
Which I love. I love that, like, you know, as a narrator, she's honest and be like, yeah, we make a ton of mistakes.
I will say that the introductions, like the reintroductions of everything, she makes it so much more dramatic in this.
Oh, okay, but this
in
case,
these 2 chapters.
this case was dramatic. I was writing everything down, and it was like a comedy scene.
Oh God, it was so funny, but I just like how she's like, every detail, Anthony Lockwood, coat of flame, arms flailing madly, like George dangling from the ladder, me, bruised, bloody.
It's very dramatic. I love it.
You can like visually see it, which is what's funny. Like you could see the comedy in it.
Yes. We didn't get a set timeline of where we are. We just know that the last book concluded in summer and we are starting in November with this book. And Lucy basically says we're leading into the dark winter, which hasn't been name dropped yet, but will be name dropped this book.
I have a question. Isn't there like a couple months or a couple, like a year or two between these books?
I have no idea.
I feel like they say it in like part 2, so I'm kind of hesitant to say that it's like right after.
Because it just says, so Skull talks about the necklace, and it says, aren't you wearing that necklace that you got this summer? So I just assumed it was like a couple months.
Well, she says that summer. I checked. She doesn't say this past summer. She just says, oh, that I got that summer.
Oh.
So I think if you want to read into it, we don't know if it was like the past summer or if it was like a couple summers
like
ago.
that summer, like that summer of 1963, like a summer that stuck out, or just that summer, like, oh, this past summer. Could be.
Yeah.
It's kind of vague. But we're leading into November where the days are getting shorter, it's getting dark quicker, so all of the little nasty ghosts are out earlier. So as Lucy, George, and Lockwood are waiting at the door to be let in, they see a phantasm creeping down the street.
I want to point out something that made me go, oh, Stroud. Spoilers. Literally the first page. Okay, well, it's technically page 2, but it's like if you were to put the words on one page, it's in the first page. Lucy is talking about like how 6 hours earlier, like they had this call about this case, and it says that they said goodbye to the person. Lockwood said, we just say goodbye politely and head off to fetch the police.
Ooh.
Fetch
This
the
is not,
police?
This is not
Fetch?
the first time. They
What?
say fetch multiple times this chapter.
Fetch
Little bit of a
the
spoiler.
police? What kind of sick language is this, Stroud?
Yeah, you know he was chuckling as he wrote that. He's like,
I literally, now that I read the book, I'm like, how dare you, sir? How dare you bring that trauma right back around? I have words. First of all, how are the kids in Alaska?
second of all, why did you use that word? It's like when he wrote Hollow and all of the other books, and it's like,
Don't
side
even.
eye,
Oh my
side
god.
eye. He's doing it on purpose to taunt the rereaders.
I know. I like how they show up at the door though, and Skull is like, why don't you just kill him?
Yeah, stab first, ask questions later. I mean, if they followed that strategy, they would have saved probably a lot of time.
Well, we'll save that for a what if question, because I think nothing would have really changed.
So they get let in. The whole reason they're investigating Lavender Lodge is because some people have been mysteriously disappearing. The police went and did a check to see if if there's any bodies upstairs. They didn't find anything, but that doesn't mean that there's not clues that our team can uncover. So they're there to do some psychic research. But they meet the caretakers of, what would you call this? Hotel?
A guest house?
Yeah, a guest
B&B?
house. B&B. The Evans, who are an older
They're creepy.
couple. And I read like Lucy's first description where she describes them as like, they're oversized owls. I was like, well, that's pretty nice. And then every couple of pages it gets worse and worse and worse, where it's like nicotine hair.
I
and
know.
they're closer to the crypt than the
She's-
crib.
Yeah, I was like closer than the coffin than the crib. I'm like, oh my god, Lucy. Oh, I do want to go back. There was a purple moment I liked. It's when Lucy is kind of worried that they're outside, that the people aren't going to let them in, and that they're going to be caught. And Lockwood's like, oh, trust me, there's no need to worry. And she says the point about Lockwood was that you believed him, even when he said far-fetched stuff like that. Right then, he was waiting quite casually on the step, one hand resting on his sword hilt, as crisply dressed as ever in his long coat and stark slim suit. And she goes on about his like physical description, which is great. But what I love about this part is that this entire paragraph just displays the huge flaw that Lucy has when it comes to Lockwood, is that like she just is enamored by him and will endlessly trust him. And that's an issue of this whole book.
I have 2 points because you're right. I totally skipped over stuff. When they're standing outside and George is worried about the phantasm, so is Lucy. There's a point where Team Optimism Lockwood comes out again. He's like, oh, it's probably just a shirt in the wind. And Lucy comes back later and says, well, we already saw shades outside. it's November, things come out earlier because it's dark. So nasty things were out already, as Lockwood well knew. So there's multiple points in this chapter where it's almost like Lockwood is trying to convince himself and the team, not that he's just naturally optimistic, being like, it'll be fine, but like points where he says these things that he knows are wrong in a way to be optimistic, like he's trying to convince himself like he doesn't already have that confidence. And then right after the quote that you pulled out about trusting Lockwood, there's a line that says, it's how I want to remember him, the way he was that night, with horrors up ahead and horrors at our back, and Lockwood standing in between them, calm and unafraid. It's the past tense for me, where it's how I want to remember him. It's how I wanted to remember him. That I was like, oh, we're already foreshadowing the conflict at the end of the book. We're already foreshadowing that perhaps our team's going to break apart. And she says this again at the very end of chapter 3, where it's so ominous, just these lines you can cherry pick out that are like, oh, everything's going okay, but there's hints that it's not okay.
I will say right off the bat, I love this book because I love the main conflict in it. It's not a ghost, it's people.
Yes.
And that's the whole point of this entire series, is that the problem is not the ghosts, the problem is the people. Strike two, Stroud. First you say fetch, then you say wanted to remember him. How dare you, sir? But we love you. Write book 6, please.
We'll analyze it, I promise.
We'll say really good things, I promise.
But our team is taken in. They start to question Mr. and Mrs. Evans about the past people that have gone missing there, basically asking, do you remember what they said? Do you remember when they left? Checking the guest book. Lucy is doing some listening from the house while Lockwood's just kind of like fake staring at this guest book to give her time. And I love that George casually like pulls up his pants to actually like check the gauge meter. They're being so sly about it because they're like, we know these people are guilty. They're very suspicious. And the room they're in, ooh, so suspicious.
This is why I want to think that there's multiple years between the previous book and this one, is because they're so good at being subtle, of checking things and being suspicious of their clients. Because Lucy's smart enough, she notices and is reading between the lines of how fishy this couple is. The bunches of lavender everywhere, and that this might be a safe room, and the types of questions that they're asking and the couple's evading answering. Also, George is checking the dust on the ketchup bottle, which tells you is like a subtle hint that their guests never make it to a meal. So like they're dying before they even get to the night. There's just so many things that just are so smart that, oh, so good.
We're getting lots of hints of the competence of Lockwood & Co. early on, which I love. But this couple with the guest house at Lavender Lodge, it's giving major landlady vibes. The Landlady is a short story by Roald Dahl, and it's like a little horror story.
Wait, Roald Dahl like Matilda?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay, continue.
I read this in 4th grade, and it is burned into my brain, just like this morbid short story. Basically, you follow the main character who goes into this bed and breakfast, meets this lovely old lady, and is very charmed, is going to stay the night. And she's like, you need to sign the guest book. You got to sign the guest book. And she's like referencing past people who have stayed there, and she can't quite get the names right. And he's like, let me tell you this name. Let me tell you this name. And it's very ominous vibes the entire time until they're chatting. He's going to stay. She offers him a cup of tea, and he's drinking. He's like, oh, it tastes a little weird. Tastes like almonds, but whatever. And then, oh, there's this like stuffed parrot. He's like, I totally thought it was a real bird. And she's like, oh yeah, he was my pet. Same with this little dog here that he saw curled up in front of the fireplace. It's a stuffed dog. And she's like, I do taxidermy. I love to keep my friends with me.
Oh no, I know where this is going.
So then he's like, oh, how odd. And he's like still drinking this tea. And she's like, yeah, this person drank a lot of tea. Like he drank so much tea. And he like starts to get these alarm bells. Kind of weird that she's still referencing all these past people. And he's like, the guy who like stayed here a long time ago? I might be misquoting this and I'm remembering it from 4th grade. But she's like, yeah, he's still here. He's upstairs. That's where all my friends are. So it's very implied that she just brings people in who are staying. She offers them tea that tastes like almonds and kills them and then stuffs them and keeps them upstairs as her friends.
Oh my god, no!
I was reading this, I was like,
No.
oh my god, it's the landlady. It's a bunch of people that bring in people and then kill them.
Oh my god.
So creepy, right?
I'm gonna not sleep tonight. Thanks, Alex.
But yes, major creepy vibes, very suspicious. I didn't believe when I was reading this that this elderly couple was so sweet. They were very creepy.
Oh, no. I was imagining the elderly version of the two girls at the end of the hallway in The Shining. Have I seen The Shining? No, but I know that scene. Everyone knows that scene. If not, listeners, just look up two girls from The Shining. You're gonna know what I'm talking about. That's what I imagined. They just, like, have their heads, like, cocked to the side. Then Lockwood pulls out a slip because the guy's like, you can't search our premises. And he's like, actually, we can. We have a right to search this premises by DPRAC. Question for you. So how much oversight do agents have in these cases? Because technically they have to report all their cases to DPRAC, right?
Yeah, I was a little confused. Because this is like a blanket warrant that you can pull out whenever. And usually warrants have to be signed by judges. You have to provide evidence on why you need it.
Yeah.
It's very Ron Swanson. I do what I want.
Well, and I'm wondering, they say the police have come previously to look if, like, a person's there. And the police probably saw something that was fishy, but they can't obviously search the premises because they're not agents. So I'm wondering then if this is a case that they put out there that's up for commission for any agents.
It kind of sounds like it was. Because they said we had done work already in that area, so we just got signed on.
Maybe it was like, we can provide you with a search warrant if you take the case. But that's what I was just wondering is, does it have to be you take on a case from DPRAC in that instance? The only reason I'm hesitant on that is because someone called them about the case beforehand, and it wasn't DPRAC.
That is a little weird. Maybe if you can justify it and they'll like back you if they get called, because he's like, you can call Inspector Barnes.
So I would think Locke would probably talk to Inspector Barnes at that point. So I don't know. I'm very curious, like, how often agents can pull that out. If it's like you can do it maybe like a couple times or one time.
Can you just walk to someone's house, bang on the door, and be like, ta-da, I'm gonna search your house? And I didn't really ever think about the fact that they might need a warrant. Usually they get signed on by their clients who want them to investigate, whereas this is kind of like, hey, look into this Lavender Lodge, they're suspicious. Not the Lavender Lodge being like, people are dying, come help us.
Yeah, the case of the screaming staircase, the red room. That one, Fairfax obviously put them in there because he wanted to trap them, but that's not usually what he did with people he didn't like. Like, it wasn't like a trap. He was using it for some mysterious reason that we do not know yet at this point. But I think this is like one of their first cases, correct me if I'm wrong, where the people are sending people to see ghosts. There's a bad side to actual alive people committing crimes against these kids.
I'm sure people have found out a way to utilize sources in order to kill people because people are bad. So I feel like, naturally someone would have figured out, oh, let me just kill someone with a ghost. But I think this is like the first case where we're like, oh shit, these people are using a source as their murder weapon instead of it being, oh, someone died because of the source and I want it fixed.
All right. So then they mentioned that there was a man that was there. His name was Benton, and that they were looking for him. And they're trying to chat up and everything, and they can't get, like, any information from this guy. They ask how many guest rooms they have at this inn. They say 6, 4 on the second floor, 2 on top. But we know that there's also an attic on the top. How many does that make? Yes, listeners, 7.
Oh my god, I didn't even catch that. The 7th theme continues.
I'm pretty sure someone listening to this going, you're an idiot. It's just 6, but let me have this.
We're gonna take it, and we're gonna run with it.
I'm gonna take it as 7. 7! Okay. This couple is also just terrible at trying to hide anything. Like, they're being so dodgy with all their questions.
Leave your bags on the floor. You don't need them. And they're just, like, stone-faced. Lucy and George pick up the bags, don't even say anything, and, like, walk away with them. And as they're walking to the stairs, Lucy's like, they know we're gonna find out that they're guilty and that we have talents. What is their game here? What is their end goal? And then as they're asking the question, they turn around on the stairs and Mr. Evans shuts the door and locks them in.
Where's the DFD when you need it?
Where's our DFD, George? Not that it would have helped in this case, but still.
Skull goes brilliant. Outwitted by a senior citizen. Outstanding. What a team. And I like how Lucy's like, well, that was a good point. I didn't tell him to shut up.
Fair enough, fair enough.
Readers, if you have not read book 3, this is where Skull comes alive. Metaphorically. Like, oh my god.
He's so sassy. But that leads us into chapter 2.
So our heroes are locked upstairs with no way out. Dun, dun, dun.
And this is where we get our, I'm Lucy. Here's some fun facts about me.
Yeah.
I just like that she mentions that she's good with candles. How can you be good with candles?
I don't know. You're lit.
Oh my god. That's a great joke. You're on fire.
Put it out. Put it out. Any got any others? Do you want to keep going?
I would like to think I'm also good at candles.
She's good at candles. They go anywhere. It's someone's birthday. She's like, I got 4. You know, just pops
Yeah,
them
like
out.
in her pack, she has like happy birthday candles, like as part of her agent pack.
George will always have a cake on
Yeah.
hand. Lucy always has candles. And Lockwood's going to sing the song.
Perfect. That's what they do in their spare time.
So there's no point in knocking down the door. And then they all get to use their talent. Lockwood doesn't see anything. Lucy hears some faint whispers. And Skull is just like, oh, there's a lot of ghosts up there. And I'm like, Skull, that's nothing new. Like, it's not helpful.
I do like that we get Lockwood clearing his throat to be like, let us in on what Skull is saying. And it just makes me think of all of the conversations that Lucy has with Skull that Lockwood and George are just hearing from Lucy's perspective.
I just kind of wish like we could just hear not Skull sometimes and just see what Lockwood and George are hearing. I mean, I know a bunch of people are like, I want the books from Lockwood's perspective. I'm like, honestly, Lockwood or George, either. I want to hear what's going on.
Lucy does have a line that I want to mark out where she says Lockwood is adjusting his gloves. He's really being a leader here and saying George basically set up the iron circle so we're safe. Lucy tried to talk to Skull a little more. He's delegating tasks. But she says, as always, peril suited him. That's a depressing compliment.
I mean, she could say anything suits him. Let's be real. She is a simp for Lockwood at this point. Holy shit. Lucy, calm it down. We are too much in your head.
Any situation, Lockwood looks good, which we'll see later.
And then we get to a great part, a great conversation between Lucy and Skull. And again, props to the voice narrator for this book because she's hilarious. She has the Skull voice that I imagine that's like, yes, I'm always sensible, you know? It's just great. And I like how she's like, you gonna be sensible now? He's like, I'm always sensible. And she's like, right, what are we dealing with? And then he's like, oh, there are lots of spirits, happy. Oh, wait, I got some. Wait for it. Oh yeah, it's bad. Oh, it's really bad. It's like, Skull. And then he says, find a window and jump out of it. Way to hint at what needs to happen or what's going to happen later. Okay.
I did like that he says he's an invaluable member of the team.
I thought you were going to laugh at how Skull is once again like, oh, like not much help in the jar, but if you let me out.
I love it. He gives the barest hint of information to make you curious. And he's like, well, let me out and I'll tell you more. It's like, well, dang it.
He's like, I'm an invaluable member of the team. And she's like, really? You spend half the time cheering on for us to die.
He's their own cheerleader. It just so happens that he's cheering that they die, not cheering when they win.
He's an anti-cheerleader. We love it.
He's cheering for the ghosts. He's their representative. Get a little blurb about how the relationship between Lucy and Skull has changed, but not really. I thought it would have gone into a little more like, Skull saved my life last book, but that wasn't referenced at all.
Well, I think it's cool because Lucy has this whole paragraph, like you said, where she talks about her relationship with Skull, but also mainly how dangerous the Skull is and how it affects her with his evil presence. It is really interesting that she states it that way because as readers, when we're coming into this book, we're trying to find who's the villain, who's the big bad in this book. And so you might think, oh, it's going to be the Skull because it affects her, it makes her evil, like it's going to turn her evil. Actually, in this book, no one is innocent. They're all a problem in this book. They're all problematic.
Oh, yeah.
I know some people, like, you know, defend Lucy to the ends of the earth. She is not that innocent. And some people will defend Lockwood. I'm like, he is not that innocent either. Neither is Holly. Neither is George. They're all kind of messed up. I think, honestly, the only, you know, innocent one in this whole book is Kipps. The biggest villain in this book is not a ghost. It's not a adult. It's themselves. Oh, it's so good. So it's kind of a hint at, like, it's trying to say that they're the villains, but I think she wants to blame all, like, she sees, like, oh, the Skull, he sees this evil presence, he's putting all these bad thoughts in my head, and in a way she's, like, would blame everything to come on, like, the Skull, but no, she's gonna be the villain in her own story here. Just wait for it.
Oh, yeah. If we're talking about literary themes, again, let me preface. I don't know much about literature. I didn't major in it. It is not my job. I am talking just from my feelings and my own thoughts. So take that with lots of salt. Maybe a magnesium flare. I just think it's so interesting that with this case that is starting off the theme of this book, like we said earlier, the villain is not the ghost. The ghost, yeah, it's killing people, but it is being used and manipulated by humans, by the caretakers of the Lavender Lodge. Everyone has their own dark little secret. Everyone is a villain. And that theme continues because, like you said, no one is innocent in this story. Lucy is not the best person in the world. She has flaws. Every character does. And this book starts to analyze their quote unquote fatal flaws and the flaws in their character and how that interacts. Just like the end of the book, spoiler alert, the big bad ghost gets all of its power from all of them fighting. So it's like, yeah, the ghost is killing people and doing things, but there is a real person behind that. I just like that we're getting that tonal shift because kind of in the first couple books, yeah, Fairfax was bad, but it was always the ghost is the problem. Let's fight the ghost. And now, yeah, we have to fight the ghost, but we also have to fight ourselves and solve interpersonal issues, not just supernatural ones. So, moving on.
Alex, that was quite a soapbox.
That was a big soapbox.
Are you going to step down off the soapbox?
Stepped off.
Thank you. We haven't said the soapbox moment in a moment, so I feel like that was good for you.
Yeah, I think I've had mini soapboxes. That was a big step.
That was a
That
good
was
one.
a big step.
I think I put the stepping stool there for you.
Yeah, you put that baby step there, and then I jumped.
You just
I
leaped.
jumped.
You Neil Armstronged it. Like, you just went.
Just went for it.
You Usain Bolt. You Usain Bolton.
Oh God. Yeah, we're making strides here.
You know what's not making strides? Apparently the decor in the bedroom, which Lockwood says, well, that was horrible.
Of course he would notice that. Oh, the color scheme is off.
I just really like that Barnes was the same way. He's just like, oh, how dare you decorate Portland Row like this? What is this? Decorations. And then Lockwood also is just like, oh my God, the decor in that bedroom. Oh my gosh, it was horrendous. I'm like,
Never mind, there's a dead person on the bed.
that was really creepy, that dead person floating over the bed ever so slightly, and he's just like, asleep. And they go into like all the other rooms, and it's the same thing, like the guy just like standing in front of the mirror, staring at it.
My question is, there's a lot of people straight up staring at the ceiling. How are we not figuring out these clues? I know this is a book for middle schoolers, but a dead person staring at the ceiling in horror. Maybe something came through the ceiling. They get there eventually.
If they get there quick enough, come on. And also, I'm gonna give them that they figured out a lot of stuff coming in. Stuff was fishy. So we'll give them that.
That's true. Lockwood has the sight, and he has the best sight out of the entire group in Lockwood & Co. And we've kind of heard some things about death glows, but I feel like this is the first time Lockwood's talked a little bit more about it, because with Annabelle Ward, he said, oh, there's a death glow, it's really faint. When they went into Coombe Hall, it was like, oh my God, the death glows are blinding. Here we have two death glows, one's brighter than the other, and you can tell from that they were on different dates and different incidents. So I just thought that was interesting. Like, we hear a lot from Lucy's perspective about what she's hearing and how you can touch a wall 5 times, and on the 6th time you get hit with that something, and how she can be like half in, half out. But we never really hear a lot about the sight that Lockwood experiences.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was nice that we're finally getting something a little bit more niche.
Well, and we also kind of talked about that in the first book, remember? We had that question because we were like saying like there was a rat or something, you know, or mole. And I was saying, well, if I lived like had a really gruesome death, would my death glow be brighter? So, I mean, he's saying like different dates, different incidences. So maybe the different incidences is also a hint at how violent the death was as well. So I think he's hinting out exactly what we said in the first book. So I think our hypothesis is correct.
I'd like to think so.
Alex, we're smart.
Yeah, we know things.
And he also explains about their remains. Their bones aren't there. So, like, they must have gotten so ghost touched that literally their entire body burned up, which is terrifying to think about. But then I just want to know, what was the reason? Why did this couple do this? What was the reason?
When he talks about how their bodies go dry and papery like shells, all I can think of is that last scene in the Harry Potter movie where Voldemort explodes into confetti.
Oh, yeah.
That's what happened to these ghosts, and then they just got vacuumed up.
Yep. Just little Hoover.
But they're moving on through the house.
They're standing in front. There's 3 doors that they have to come up to. And, of course, then they don't, you know, draw straws or anything. But George is like, fine, I'll take one for the team. I'll go first. And he chooses the broom closet.
George is a man after my own soul. I would do the same thing. Door number 1. I'm going to choose the smallest door.
And Lucy even brings it up. She's like, really? You knew that.
Lucy chooses to look behind door number 2, which I guess isn't room number 2. That's different. Door number 2 is a bathroom.
With the guy that's standing there looking in the mirror. Super freaky.
Real creepy. She locks him in. And that leaves the door 2 for the third room for Lockwood to go in. And this is the second moment, I highlighted it purple, where we get Lockwood's false confidence. Lockwood didn't look the happiest I've ever seen him. He hefted his rapier in his hand, rolled his shoulders, and took a deep breath. Then he gave us his sudden radiant grin, the one that made everything seem okay. Well, he said, after all, how dreadful can it actually be? He is faking that confidence.
You start to see the facade crumbling away.
You know he's really bracing himself with that shoulder roll. He's like mentally pep talking himself to go through a room.
It's all good. I'm fine. Fajitas. Listeners, I don't know if you've seen the TV show Friends. There's the episode where Ross sees Rachel and Joey kissing. You don't really need to know the context other than this is a huge surprise for Ross, and not the good kind, but he doesn't want to seem like he's mad. So he's just like, I'm fine, in a very high voice. And then the entire episode, he keeps being like, I'm fine. I don't know why I'm saying it out loud and squeaking, because really, I'm fine. And he gets to the point that he makes fajitas, and he takes them out of the oven without oven mitts, burns his hands, he's drunk on margaritas, and now it's to the point in my life that whenever I'm fine, I go, fajitas. So, yeah, Lockwood in this moment, I think, is going a little bit of like, fajitas. It's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
He's not fine. He's fajitas.
And there are a million ghosts in that room.
And they're all, again, just standing there. They look gaunt and unshaven and hollow. Very eerie. And we gotta know, like, how did they all get here? Because, like, that's creepy. Creepy.
And there is another line. Sorry, I'm cherry picking lines because I really like the dialogue in a lot of these scenes.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why I really like this line, but I highlighted it and put a star next to it. They were all victims, but that didn't make them safe. I don't know why I really like that, but I do.
Well, and Lucy then has, like, this theory that ghosts are attracted to humans, and that's why they drift towards them. Do you think that's a good theory, knowing what we know? Sorry, for readers that haven't finished the books, spoilers, just skip maybe like 5 minutes. Do you think this is a good theory?
I do, because when they get to the point where they're interacting more closely with spirits and they're following them, I totally think it's like, oh, someone's alive. I think the ghosts don't necessarily know that they're dead, but they know they're lacking something vital that living people have, like this warmth, or the ghosts are lonely and this is a person that could provide companionship. And they just are so attracted to that they unconsciously follow them and seek that out. Or they're angry and this living person would be a way for them to deal with their anger. So yeah, 100%, I think this is such a good hint of an explanation. What about you?
I think it's close. I think, again, it's mysterious of why these ghosts do what they do. So I think they're attracted to humans in that they see life and they want that life. But also I think they know, because we know that there are people crossing over to the other side and basically blocking so they can't move on. So in a way, there's two things they could be doing with that explanation. Either they're trying to get revenge on the humans for blocking them out, or they are confused ghosts and they're trying to figure out how to cross over and trying to beg these humans to kind of what we had in the last book of give us back our bones. And it's the pleading of like, please let me move on. Please help us, you know? So I think in a way it's both. And I think, again, that's probably why Lucy is so affected by all these ghosts and her powers are so strong, is because she actively listens to them and hears their cries for wanting to move, to be able to move on. Like, she's the only one that really like has that empathy to believe that. I think her hypothesis is pretty on the nail. It's getting there. I think there's just a lot of stuff that will probably never be known in this world because it's just a giant mystery. Stroud Lees, which we love you, Stroud. Please give us book 6.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a drowning person. You know when someone's drowning? No, that's a horrible way to start that. But like, if someone is drowning and you try to save them, it is likely that they will shove your head under the water and claw the way to the top because they're so freaked out. So it's really dangerous to try to help them. I think that's kind of like how the ghosts are.
Ooh, true.
They don't know how to get help. And in the way to get help and try to cross to the other side, they might kill someone. Oops. Yeah.
Like,
Slight consequence. Anyway, moving on, they have to make a quick escape. They go to the top of the house, which is the little creepy attic.
They open the attic door, and I do love a comment that Lockwood's like, quick, grab the ladder. And George has his Ron Weasley moment from the first Harry Potter movie of going, where? But they get up to the top of the house, and then they notice how cold it is. And I will once again say, because we brought this up earlier in the Bickerstaff Mansion, heat rises, people. This is terrifying that the attic is now the coldest place of the house. And also that when they get up there, the ghosts pause. It's so creepy. Oh my god. Okay, chapter 3.
It's cold. It's dark. They can feel the visitor's presence. It's pressure that's sitting on their chest. She says it makes them feel like they're in the water with the weight crushing them. Just an oppressive vibe that's going on. And I think it's so creepy that the attic is virtually empty besides a shit ton of spiders.
I can visually see this attic in my mind, especially with all the cobwebs everywhere. Like, his description of the cobwebs in this attic is just so good. It's just stunning writing. It's so good.
They are looking around to see if they can find the source, which is taking them a lot longer than they were expecting because the attic is empty. And they can't find anything. All they can kind of see is that the dust looks like there's patterns in it, but there's no footprints, nothing that would indicate the cause of the dust patterns. And they're out of ideas. They ask if anyone has any ideas. And of course, George, our comic relief character, says, yeah, he thinks that they should eat. And he was going to steal Lucy's sandwich.
What a mood.
Which is a vibe. And then as Lucy is rolling her eyes, she sees a little something on top of the crossbeam.
There's a pink moment for me there right before we see that she sees it. Did we both write it? Oh my
Yes.
God. That Lockwood is always the first notice when anything was wrong, and he asks if she's okay.
Yes!
I love a slow burn.
Locklisle. I love it. I love it so much.
They're so cute. Oh, I can't. I know. I think I put in my notes, I was like, oh, this is so cute. He notices when something's wrong. That will end soon.
Yeah, it will. Lockwood's kind of a shithead, this book. I'm not gonna lie.
If you didn't know, readers, don't get attached to Lockwood. Not in
No.
the way that he'll die if that were to happen. But
Oh, side-eye. Side-eye.
but don't get attached. You're gonna be disappointed by every single one of them this book. And that's what makes this book so good.
A lot of character flaws here that hit you right in the heart. From this point on, while they're fighting the visitor, everything dissolves into chaos.
I like Skull's advice. This would be my tactic. He says, you want my advice? Just go up and check, chuck a magnesium flare, and run away. Honestly, that would be my tactic.
Solid advice.
Burn down the house? Sorry. You were creepy anyway. You're clearly guilty, so...
Wouldn't be the first time that they, killed the client.
And George has his brave moment. They basically are like, okay, there's a source up there, somewhere in the beams. We have to seal it. And they're like, how about you, George? And George says he generally expresses as much emotion as a bowl of custard. And he wasn't really delightful right now. But he is just like, I got it. Hand me the net. And I'm like, yes, George.
Yes, climb up there.
So he goes up there and Skull's like, don't say I didn't tell you so.
And then we get Lockwood, who always says the worst things at the worst time, where he's like, okay, if anything's gonna happen. And then it happens. Chaos.
How do you picture this ghost? Because I picture it as a giant octopus.
Okay, it may just be because the current algorithm on TikTok is showing me a lot of Pirates of the Caribbean, but I was like, this is the Kraken.
It literally is.
Where it's like the tentacles being like...
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm picturing. It's just, there's this black entity, black octopus that's just sitting on top of the railing.
Yeah. All I can think of is ghostly, smoky tentacles. And Lucy's playing hopscotch with them, trying to avoid him. That's all I can picture.
Yep. That's all I'm picturing as well. And it's just... Ugh, creepy. And then things are not going well, as the ghost jar says. Oh, a good start. Lucy's sword, gone. George, flailing. Lockwood, coat on fire. Not going great. And then they pull like a video game of, well, I need water, you need a sword, George just needs help. And there's a switcheroo that's gonna be happening, which leads to quite possibly I'm spoiling this for you right now, Alex.
This is my favorite part too. I highlighted the entire page green.
I will say, I think of all the lines in the whole series, this one takes the cake. This is the funniest moment. This entire scene. It's not one line, it's just the whole visual. And the way he writes it as well, like Lucy basically says it, is like, watch this now. Sword and bottle, flailing through the air, twin trajectories, twin journeys. It's just like, I can't.
This is why I'm so crushed that we did not get a season 2, because
Did not. We will.
we will, and we will visualize it. And I'm just gonna say this now so they can cut it out, put it on a piece of paper, and be like, yes, this is how we do it. Scene. They're in the attic. You get the one-hand shot, slow motion, throwing the water bottle. George is throwing the sword. You get like a swelling orchestra music
Yes.
that's hopeful. And you're like, yes. And then all the hands are reaching for it. And then it speeds up. The music cuts. The rapier goes flying. You zoom in on Lockwood, hits him in the face, falls out the window.
Oh my gosh.
I can visualize it so good.
So Lockwood now has a new enemy in his list. Balaclavas, feelings, water bottles. That's Liz. That needs to be a meme that we make.
And there's a picture. Lavender Ghost Coat does incredible doodles that are just so good.
Yes. Huge shout out to her.
The picture she has of this where Lockwood is getting smacked in the face of water bottles. Oh,
It's so funny.
It's so
oh my
good.
gosh.
It's so good.
I can picture it literally of like a water bottle just hitting him like smack in the middle of the forehead and literally flailing backwards.
Yes, so dramatic. You can see the water
Oh my
bottle
God.
thumping on the floor and him just falling out. Oh, it's
can't.
it's so visual. I can see it. Stroud is a genius, and it is so funny.
And then the funniest part of all this is Skull at the end goes, "Is he dead?"
Yay!
Yay! Oh, crap. No, he's not dead. Shame. Still, that was the funniest thing I've ever seen. You three really are incompetents on a stick.
Luckily, Lockwood's hanging out of the window. It's storming outside, so Lucy's right. She did do her part in putting the flames out, even if it wasn't what she intended. I do love George being like, do a somersault. Go get the rapier. You threw that like a girl.
Yeah, he's like, you chucked that water bottle like a girl. She's like, I am a fucking girl, you idiot. Like,
And I put out the fire on Lockwood's coat.
she's like, well, that was sort of true, but I wasn't gonna say that out loud. Not gonna give him the satisfaction.
Of course, Lucy now, she dropped her rapier. Lockwood dropped his rapier, and Lucy didn't catch the rapier that George threw because it was an awful throw. Let's be honest, George.
Actually,
that
her
one's
rapier
on you.
fell through the attic door. Let's just mention
it's
that.
completely out of grabbing range.
Yeah.
So Lucy has no weapons, and the tentacles are still coming for her. But luckily, Skull pops in with some great advice, which is to use the necklace, dummy.
Oh my gosh. Skull is just, he has some fun advice every so often. He just likes to pepper it when he wants. It's on his terms. I respect that. Can you imagine, though, the internal dialogue in Lockwood's head after being thrown out that window? Like, he's probably, like, worried about Lucy and George, which is adorable. But I bet you he's just like, why do I fucking have a crush on this woman? Like, she has no aim.
He's got to be dazed. He's clinging for his life. His coat's on fire, but the flames are being put out. He's got a throbbing headache from the water bottle, and he looks through all of the chaos and like the magnesium salt that's falling, the tentacles that are flailing, and he sees Lucy whipping the necklace he gave her around. It's just gonna be like in his head, like, what the fuck?
I can just hear me like, why do I love this woman?
Oh, God. And then Lockwood once again. So Lucy gets up, touches the wood, instantly connects with the ghost, and learns, hey, this ghost is mad. Some great insight. Lockwood calls her name and kind of breaks her out of it. Again, Lockwood saving Lucy. He does this every book where he snaps
All the
her out
time.
of it.
He always notices.
He looks at her across the room, smiles, and is like, yeah, we gotta finish this thing. So cute. With the red circle on his forehead. My heart.
I can't. I cannot. Let me have these few moments before it breaks apart, okay? Let me have this. Lucy then switches with George, and she does get up there, and she sees that there is a very angry dead person just lying up there, hidden up there for years.
Why would you store a dead body on a crossbeam in the attic? The physics alone to drag that body up there and store him up there. Why?
Also, wouldn't it like rot the wood at some point?
Why would you not just put him in the garden?
What, do you know from experience?
No.
That was that. You said that too weirdly for
I
that
don't
not
have
to
an
be true.
attic. I don't. I'm in an apartment. I have neighbors on my upper floor.
Listeners, if you don't hear from me again, ask Alex.
Yeah.
We don't live near each other at all, but
already covered that if I was to kill you and murder you and put you in a graveyard, I would have your name be Penelope or Florence. Was it Florence?
Florence.
Yeah.
And then I said, what about me, says Florence. And I'm still asking that question every day.
You know what it is? I think it's because Flo Bones was in there, and I just assumed that Flo's name is Florence.
Do you want to redo on the name?
Let me think about it.
Okay.
Not right now. I need time. That could be our what if question or question next week.
No, I've already got a question next week, I think.
At the end of this episode, I will give you a new name. So Lucy's up there. We've covered that she sees the dead person that defies the laws of physics to get up there. Horrible hiding place. Lockwood, of course, has perfect aim when he's throwing and throws her a silver net. And she puts the source to rest by covering it.
I like how she explains how it's like a handy dandy silver net. Pull it out of a little container and just chuck it. It makes it seem like it's one of those little like tissue packets, you know, and you just silver net. You get a silver net. You get a silver net. You all get silver nets.
Okay, in my brain, a silver net is very thin mesh. That is how my brain pictures it. But when I think about it, I'm like, yeah, an emergency blanket for heat. It just looks like foil.
So in my head, it's a lot lighter than it probably actually is.
So they seal the source. The changer is now gone, and the attic seems huge now that they're not fighting for their lives. I do love this line at the end. Everyone looks awful. They look wrecked. It's been a rough night. Lockwood has smoke coming off of his fancy coat. He has silver ash on his nose. Lucy's jacket is full of holes where the plasm touched it. Her hair is full of cobwebs. George managed to tear his pants. They're a mess. They've been up for at least 6 hours. They smell awful. They all look at each other and then they have a moment.
And they start laughing.
And they laugh. And I just think that's so good.
It's so how friends are. You have that moment of, wait, shit, are you okay? Oh my god, okay, you're okay, now we can laugh about it, you know? Like,
yes.
It's, or even just like we said, like those embarrassing moments like we were talking about at the beginning of like you have those ones and you're like, oh my god, I'm so embarrassed. Or you panic in something and it's like, oh, it'll be funny later. And sometimes it is. But I just love how their kid, right after all this, literally a traumatic thing to go through.
Yeah.
They'll just look at each other and they still just enjoy each other's company. And it makes me so sad because, especially with the last line.
Oh, the last line rips out your heart.
But that was just it. We weren't hopeless. We were good. We were the best. And we never fully realized it until it was too late. Oh my god.
That is so ominous. It is so chilling. It has so many implications. Jonathan Stroud, why?
Of all the starts to the book that we've had, of the first two and this one, this is the best one because it's such a good cliffhanger of like, wait, what? Because, and again, I will say this is why I love this novel, and I'm going to go on this in the BBC at the end of why I love this book. I loved this book because every time I thought he was going to go into one trope or go into one thing, he did the opposite. You have books like in Harry Potter or Percy Jackson or The Hunger Games or something where you have like a trio or like a group of people and they're going to have fights, but they usually make it up with each other inside the book. Honestly, this book is equivalent to The Catching Fire of the Hunger Games series, where you're left off on a cliffhanger of like, wait, what? It's just like, it doesn't go the way you expect, and it has all these plot twists that you don't see coming. For me, all of these things that happen in this book, it's not like the event itself is surprising. It's more just the way that he carves out this story and tells it. It's things that you aren't expecting to happen, and then when you get to the end, you're like, wait, what? That never happens in the middle of a series. That's usually unheard of. That's what you read about in fan fiction or like a what if alternate universe. Oh my gosh, it's just so good. I am so excited, listeners, for this book. I have to stop and say, like, I don't know if this is my favorite one of the last three, but I definitely love the last three so much.
The last three are tied in my heart on such a good level because, like we said, it starts getting more emotional and we know the team better, so the interactions are just so much more. And, it's just crushing because we already had the line at the beginning of the chapter where it's like, this is how I wish I remembered him. And then we get this line at the end where it's like, haha, if you missed that first line, surprise.
Again, dropping little hints the whole time. And like also Lockwood being hesitant and leading up to recklessness and not caring. Lucy just outwardly trusting him and not seeing his flaws. There's so many things.
I'm so excited to get to it all, but I need to buy some stock in tissues because I'm going to blow through them. Kleenex, you're going to get huge spike in pricing from me.
I'm gonna get through my wine that I have.
Gonna need to buy some emotional support chocolate and all sorts of stuff, because these last 3 books, they're heart-wrenching. They toy with your emotions.
But they're so good in the best way.
You see the team go through it, and it's so good, but it's so bad at the same time. That brings us to our what if question.
The what if question of the week. Yay!
Our what if question of the week is, what if the trio were in different places in the attic?
So, like, what if the roles were reversed between the three of them?
Let's just line up. Okay, so we had George on the ladder.
Trying to figure out where the source is.
We had Lucy by the exit with no rapier, and then we have Lockwood on fire with no rapier.
I think he had his rapier for a second, but then his coat was on fire.
What do we think would happen?
I love Lucy, but I'm banking if she was by the window, I think she would have had a harder time getting back up in the window, or like she actually would have fallen. I'm thinking it would not have ended well. Maybe I'm self-projecting myself on Lucy right now, but I think she probably would have fallen, because she also hates heights. So I think she would have panicked. I don't think she would have been able to get herself up. Also, if she was flailing from the ladder, as well, I feel like she'd be a little scared. It's less like heights outside. But I think she'd do okay on the ladder. I honestly think she should have been sent up in the ladder instead of George, because I think she would have been able to find it faster. So I think that would have been a little bit more successful if she was up there. Lockwood, I mean, him by the window is hilarious. I think of all the 3 of them, Lockwood's probably the best to have at the window. Knowing what we know of what happens in this book, he needs a water bottle chucked at his head. So, you know, that's fine. I'm okay with him getting chucked by the water bottle. But I think George and Lucy could have been switched. I think George could have taken care of himself with some magnesium flares and such. And salt bombs.
That's the only thing I can think of, because if we're assuming that George would keep his rapier, he'd be able to fend off the ghost, and he wouldn't have to rely on Skull's advice with the necklace, because I don't think he's wearing a necklace, and he can't hear Skull. Lucy would be basically out of commission until George propped the ladder back up, at which case Lockwood could throw the silver net to her, and she could steal the source easily. I think Lockwood needs to be by the window, because I think, quite frankly, he's probably the only one that could pull himself back in from the shutters. But if someone was over in his position, would they have caught on fire if they didn't have his coat on?
George's puffer jacket. Come on.
That's true. He'd catch on fire as well.
It's winter. They're all wearing coats. So, like, unless Lucy's wearing, like, a leather jacket, oh, she'd be solid.
But yeah, I think, like what you said, only George and Lucy, I think, could be swapped and have the end result be the same.
It's the same or a little bit better. I think Lucy probably would have done a little bit better of a job finding the source. But I mean, there was that moment where she felt like the wall and felt a little bit more of why the ghost was like that. But I don't think that was really entirely helpful to her figuring out where the source was.
They even made the comment when she connected with the ghost, and she's like, oh my god, this ghost is mad and he wants justice. And they're like, yeah,
obviously.
We know. Like, he's attacking us.
Yeah.
It's a little obvious. It's not some great insight.
There was no new information from the beginning when Lucy was feeling around to the end. I'm fine with the added water bottle scene, because that is, leading into the next portion, that is my favorite part. I'm just telling you. Like, I know that's your favorite part too. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, that's mine too.
Like,
yeah.
There's no discussion needed. Hands down. The funniest moment. Oh my god.
So, when they make a season 2, I can't wait to see that very scene. And if it gets cut, I will be mad.
That was
really ominous.
You ended ominous like this chapter.
Join us for our next episode, which will cover part 2, Whitechapel Nights, which covers chapters 4 through 7. You can find us on social media at Instagram at 2bestiesread, on Twitter or X at 2bestiesread, and, wait for it, our Gmail, which is 2bestiesread@gmail.com. We also have a website, so please
check it
out.
We update it quite often.
Yes, we do. It's there. It has the what if questions. It has a little blurb of information about us and why we decided to start with this series and start a podcast in general.
If you want to go back on previous episodes, you can go deep dive there. It's a fun time.
It's a great website. There's a lot of knowledge there. You should definitely visit. Please let us know if you too would hate the decor in the Lavender Lodge. I can't remember the colors, but I think it was yellow and a nasty green and a purple.
Let us know if you too have had an embarrassing moment. You don't have to tell it to us. Just say yes or no. That's all I want to know. Poll, yes, no.
Let us know if you want to see pictures of my dog snuggling the Lockwood Co. books.
Let us know if you too also say fajitas when you're fine.
Let us know if you would throw the water bottle and hit Lockwood in the face, or if you have good aim.
If it was a Hydro Flask, would you still throw it? If it was a Stanley, would you throw it harder?
Do you imagine whipping that big-ass cup around? Oh my god.
Would you also throw a Kool-Aid at Lockwood in hopes that it might stain his face?
I think a white wine would make the fireworks. But you could try it.
Oh my gosh. Let us know if you too identify with George, wanting to just eat and open the broom closet and get away with it.
I decided on your name that I would bury you under.
What is it?
Evangeline.
Oh my god. We're going with the star from Princess and the Frog?
Yeah, I am.
Oh my gosh. Listeners, let us know if Alex should pick a new name.
Yeah, should I do the Harry Potter thing where I just rearrange your name?
Oh my god, yes please. Yes please.
Idda.
That's it.
Oh my god.
No one's gonna know.
Yeah.
They're gonna know.
It'll be a mystery. Well, now all the listeners will have to know.
They're gonna know.
You better not rat me out.
How would they know? I was really hoping you'd pick up on my reference.
Oh god. Yes.
They're gonna know. How would they know?
How would they know? The algorithm.
Dun 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 dun.
Oh, Jesus. Addi. Or should I say Idda?
Idda.
Thanks for being my bestie.
Exla.
Thanks, Lexa.
Exla. Thanks for being my bestie.
Perfect.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks for listening to TBR.
Be sure to follow us on the socials at Two Besties Read.
Got any suggestions for the other series we should look at? Email us at twobestiesread@gmail.com.
Join us next week as we read